This is Guns, Knives, and Watches, and this is why the IWI Tavor failed. And also educating some of the viewers what the difference between a long stroke gas system and a short stroke gas system are. Now, both these weapons go back, of course, they're both Soviet well, this is probably a Chinese manufactured weapon. This is Soviet or Russian manufactured, made in Ishmash. You can pronounce it however you want to, I don't give a shit. Both of these weapon systems use a long stroke gas system and have the charging handles over on the right hand side. And they are non-fold down, non-this, there, or the other. Weapons that have charging handles over on the left hand side have a few design limitations, especially for right hand shooters. Very convenient to have it that way. Very, just ideal. You don't have to do the reach around or anything like that. Now, you have to excuse me, I'm hugging a camera and I've got a lot of props sitting around me. But the Soviets back in the day decided that this was what they wanted to do. Now, to educate someone quickly on what a long stroke gas system is, as opposed to a short stroke gas system, the piston is actually made onto the bolt and then it cycles with it, okay? Now, that's long stroke. I'll show you a short stroke here in a little bit, which means this whole mass takes the full impulse of the bullet and actually is... I need to put the gun apart, not make a damn video. Put the gun together, not make the video. So that whole mass, piston, and everything takes the whole cycle. Now, let's get rid of these. Let's go a few years ahead. Now, this is an HK. It has a charging handle over on the left-hand side of the rifle. Shooter's left. Charge it. Come back, go forward, flops down, okay? So even back in the day, they realized that possibly having a charging handle over on the shooter's left could be an issue for right-handed shooters. Real easy to resolve that issue, okay? Some right-handed shooters, that's just the way they like to roll. Some people put it over, especially when it cycles, but that's a whole other debate. Now let's go to a smaller weapon that's more easily carried. This is a PTR 16-inch barrel. It is of course an HK clone, and it also has the charging handle up there in the front. Folds down, out of the way, everything, so that when you're carrying it, nothing's going to bash on it and it's not going to drag against your body. Now, short stroke gas systems, which this is a short stroke gas system. This is the AR from LWMC. Has of course, a Daniel Defense sight on it right now, but let's just go with it. This short stroke gas piston system, there's your piston. There's the rod, comes back, and can only travel so far. Let's lock the bolt back. Can only travel very short distance. That's the whole travel of it. Now, it hits an anvil that's on your bolt carrier. And of course, as you can see, I have an actual bearing on there to reduce some of the drag, the rotation of the bolt. And the piston comes back, hits the anvil, it operates. That is a short stroke gas system, which 99.9% of ARs that are piston driven operate under. I have never shot a long stroke gas system on an AR. Long stroke piston system. Of course, that's not DI guns, because DI guns don't come into this conversation, because we're talking only about relative piston driven guns. You know, comparing a DI gun and a piston gun, they're not the same. Now, here's a bullpup design that has been beat all to hell, but has had to deal with being ambidextrous and having charging handles on both sides. Now, this is just a simple little, you know, FN, da 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 da, this, there, the other. But they put really short, stubby charging handles on it. Now, guns, knives, watches. Why is any of this conversation important? Because if you have the gun over on that side, your body's pretty soft, okay? And the charging handle's pretty easy to get to. And it's really convenient. But people do things like they wear harnesses with hard things like magazines. Of course, this one does not have any real magazines in it right now, but they carry things like magazines. They have body armor. And why would you be carrying a Tavor wearing soft body armor? Now, I know they have dragon skin, which is a ceramic from back in the day that's very pliable, and this, there, the other, and a lot of them. But most level 4, you know, armor and level 3 are hard. Now, they don't want to give. They don't have to be made out of steel. You know, ceramic ones, whatever. You know, if you fall on them, drop them too hard, what do they want you to do? Get them x-rayed, in case you cracked them, this, there, or the other. These, of course, are steel that are extremely, extremely reliable from AR 500. So, you have your body armor. Then you have your Tavor, and it's still broken. I have not this, there, or the other. Then you have your charging handle coming through here and operating on this side for a right-handed shooter. So it goes through that port, and I probably should have put the thing together just to give a good, you know, measurement, but I'm not going to, and I'm not going to waste my time with it. If you have this across your chest like this, and you, for some reason, trip, fall, whatever, do anything, you're putting full force on this charging handle. And this charging handle only rocks. It does not retract. Now, the Tavor has a bolt system and basically a piston that works real similar to the AK-47, which means it's a long stroke system. As you can see, a lot of the components design wise, I know that the piston itself doesn't take the full ride, but let's just rock out. Actually, the piston does take the full ride. Gas comes up through here, goes back through the tube. There's basically your gas tube. It hits that, which is an internal piston, and it takes the ride. haven't been able to shoot this thing enough because, of course, it broke. Has not been repaired or anything else. Now, after it failed, we continued to drop it to see what had happened and what would happen in further hits. As you can see, this charging handle that came through that hole, there's no real marking here. But this is all broken. Now, the side that broke because of the impact with the charging handle was right here and right here. This side breaking were due to subsequent tests. This rifle got dropped a bunch of times. I'm not going into the number, but it was around 10. The actual details of the test, the people who needed to have it, had it. Now, my job was to find the weakness in the weapon, see how it will break, and report that. Period. I have no angst against the gun. I have nothing like that. In fact, my assessment was that it was a pretty solid weapon other than the design of this one piece. Because when it failed, it actually impeded the operation of the entire weapon system through breaking of these pieces. Now, it stopped the weapon system the very first impact. It broke, impeded the impact of the weapon system that wouldn't cycle. Then, we continued, since it was already broken, to break it some more. Because that's what I do. But I knew through decades and decades and decades of weapons testing how to break it. All I had to do was see you have a charging handle sticking out, you have a polymer piece on the top. Ha! Let's see how your resin was actually put together. Because if you mount rails on here, which this weapon system of course had rails mounted up here on the opposite side of the charging handle, you want stability. Now, this is of course glass reinforced plastic basically. You can call it whatever the hell you want to, but it's still polymer chemistry. You are still glass reinforcing it. And as long as it's polymer chemistry, it's a plastic. Now, the way you cut cost on manufacturing plastics, any polymer that's a long chain polymer like this, is you cut its resin content on the actual parts of it that make it flexible and pliable. I'll give you a hard real-world example. The most expensive paint, and which paint is also a polymer, is on your bumper of your car. You can hit the bumper of your car, depending on the impact, and the paint will pop right back out. The substance that you add to that paint to make it stay pliable and not harden up like the rest of the paint on your car is the most expensive part of the process. Now, that really doesn't have a damn thing to do with this because you're mounting a Picatinny rail on it. And you want that Picatinny rail to be stable. But knowing that little bit of chemistry, that there's no way they're going to make this very pliable, and looking at this part, seeing how thin that little area is there that connects it, it was easy before the test for me to build a test for this weapon system to fail. Now, in a short-term action like you are going to have in Israel, because Israel, believe it or not, if it was part of the United States, would be our 46th smallest state. I believe it's smaller than New Hampshire. In those type of actions, none of this matters. But when you are fielding a global military that has to fight in a ton of conditions, that may matter. Because this part will be more likely to fracture when it's cold outside, just like all plastics do. Or just through what I did, which was basically design a drop test where it simulated body weight coming down on the charging handle. Wearing body armor. Now, did I drop 150 pounds? Did I simulate it to where it would simulate 150 pounds coming down on it? No. What I did was basically took what does it take to kill a human? 10 pounds of pressure on the nose in the correct orientation will drive your nose into your brain. So 10 pounds, for some reason, to me, always is a starting point. So then you measure basically the mass of the rifle. Take it up, drop it on a hard surface, and say, you know, that's the way things go. Because 10 pounds of force on that charging handle really isn't that much weight. When you're talking about possibly a 150-pound soldier fully outfitted, this, and then you add all of like body armor, you do all that type stuff. You start getting a lot of hard stuff. Okay. In vehicles, I really like this weapon. In police actions, I really like it. For what the Israelis have to use this weapon for, I really like it. What I don't like it for, are for, you know, possibly use by the United States military or any real military that basically isn't having to deal with the things that they deal with in Israel. Because that is a very unique military and police environment. It's not you're, you know, walking down the street, this, that, or the other, you know, normal police stuff, man. Now, I understand the police in Great Britain, they're not normal either. But in reality, that's my point. If I was to fix this weapon to where you are not going to have that happen, because that charging handle is there, and I believe that's fine for it to be there, and I don't have any problems with any other piece of this entire weapon, I would redesign this by either two things. You could possibly make this out of aluminum. Okay? That cast aluminum would work. What I would probably suggest more than anything, and the more people that are going to get their hands on this rifle and be in situations to where you're not giving it to top military or you're not giving it to this, that, or the other, you know, SWAT team would never have a problem with this. In a stack, you have no issue. You know, I don't know that I would give this to Marines. Marines are very hard on shit. I'm extremely hard on shit. It's just the way it works. Or you could reinforce that part right there. It would be real simple. All you would basically do is increase the thickness through here. You have the space in the weapon to do it. And then move the fuck forward. Because the way in which this polymer basically connects through here, as you can see, that's where it broke. Have to go back to the photographs and have to go back to everything else. And I'm not going to release any of that shit because that's proprietary shit and it's our shit. Nobody tells you about their gun testing. Not in the real world. That's YouTube amateur shit. For what I was doing, you know, I don't even have the right if I wanted to. But that's the real world. I don't own the things that I get paid to do. Now, this is Guns, Knives, and Watches, and this is the IWI Tavor. How, why, when, where it failed. And that is as close to what happened as I'm going to tell you and why. So if it was me, and I was to distribute these things at the mass scale that other weapons systems and platforms are actually distributed, instead of it being a very limited application, you know, I would redo this piece. It's not that it broke that terrified me. It was that the little shards here actually kept the charging handle from moving back and being able to charge the weapon, so it basically took it out of commission. It was like taking the bolt carrier group on an AR and not staking the gas key. That makes it basically where you have a club. Well, I had a club, and we decided to basically move forward since we knew how it was going to fail anyway with the rest of the tests. Now, one of these days, IWI will get me the parts or sell me the parts, which is what I called them about. Because all I want them to do is sell me the parts. Because this is not something that you're normally going to do. You're not going to normally calculate the weight of 10 pounds, drop it, and then see if it breaks. And realize that you're dealing with a very hard polymer that's glass reinforced, and know that because of its design, it's going to fail. There was no way this weapon system was going to pass. Because that's what we do. We break shit. This is Guns, Knives, and Watches. This is how, why, and this, there, the other, I broke shit. The IWI Tavor. Have a good one.